Day here, and we have many new faces that I know have come here for this part of the program, which is the celebration of Re-Genesis Encyclopedia, and Eahr Joan from CIIS Library, and also a graduate of the Women's Spirituality Program, is the author of that, and we are going to talk more about the program and about her. But I just needed to let you know that Mara Keller wasn't able to be here. She was going to introduce her and open this session. I'm going to do that on her behalf, and then we'll have Joe Subiando, CIIS President, say a few words. So I have a statement from Mara, though, that I thought it would be good to read since she's not here. Okay, let me just pull this closer. So this is from Mara. Welcome to you all this evening. I am Mara Keller, core faculty in the Women's Spirituality Program at CIIS, and we're here to celebrate the digital launching of Eahr Joan's Re-Genesis Encyclopedia, synthesis of the spiritual work, spiritual Dark-Motherline, integral research, Labyrinth Learning, and Eco-Theology. Eahr Joan is a reference librarian in our CIIS library. She holds a Philosophy and Religion MA in Women's Spirituality. This online launching of Regenesis Encyclopedia represents the culmination of Eahr's life work and is based on intrepid field work throughout North Africa, Europe, and the Near East. We're truly blessed that she is part of our CIIS community and that this encyclopedia will be housed here at CIIS through the CIIS library. Regenesis documents and archives feminist spirituality across disciplines, cultures, and historical periods from 3 million before Christ as an annotated chronology from Hominid ancestry supported by a profusion of photographic images from around the world. It is the first database of its kind and freely available to all on the CIIS library website. To honor Eahr Joan's work, the CIIS Library and the Women's Spirituality Program are co-sponsoring this auspicious event, and to speak to the importance of the Regenesis Encyclopedia, we're glad to have with us Joseph Subiando, President of CIIS, Noah Lowenstein, Library Director, Arisika Razak, Core Faculty in WSE, and first of all, Joseph Subiando, please, a few words. Thank you.
This is an extraordinary event and an extraordinary achievement, Eahr Joan. This morning, we started this Founders Symposium. I don't think we could have had better timing and symbolic value than what we have this evening. Because this morning, we talked about the founding of the institution, Sri Aurobindo Haridas Chaudhuri. We also talked about how there are founders to the university through the years. And Eahr, you are one of those founders. This project, 37 years that you have devoted your life to, and the fact that you chose to do it here. I was talking to Eahr just before we started this evening, and Harvard was very interested in this project. Eahr felt CIIS was the place for it. And as we talk today about the founding values of this institution and the importance of integral education, bringing together, and women's spirituality has been just that, exactly bringing that together. And Eahr, you have lived it in such a way that is a model and an inspiration to all of us. And I just want to commend you as a founder of an important project that will be here long after all of us are here. And that's the most important gift that one can give to an institution, especially to this institution. So I just want to thank you all for being here this evening in a celebration that is so extraordinary because of the dedication, the commitment, the work, the quality, the scholarship. It is unsurpassed anywhere in the world, and we're going to have it right here at CIIS, and you're going to be seeing how it works tonight. So, Eahr, thank you so much for this gift to the Institute.
So Noah is next. I just wanted to briefly say that Noah has been instrumental in helping us do something we wanted to do for several years, that is to develop a digital institutional repository for CIIS. We haven't announced it yet, but we're going to use it in order to show you this encyclopedia for tonight, and then eventually it'll be on this. But Noah can tell us more about this and other aspects of the work that you're doing together and the support of this project. Thank you.
Hello. Is that okay? Yeah? All right. So my name is Noah Lowenstein. I am the library director here at the California Institute of Integral Studies. I don't know if it's clear, but Eahr has been with the CIS community in one capacity or another for about 23 years. 22 of those 23 years she has been working at the library. For which we're really, really lucky. I mean, I think the quality of the library, the standing in which it's held inside the community has a lot to do with the work that Eahr does with our students. And this was, I started at CIS about a year and 9 months ago. And before I came here, I certainly was aware of CIIS. I had been intending to be a graduate student here in the mid-90s, actually. I had even filled out my application for the Philosophy, Cosmology, and Consciousness program. But in the end, I ended up going to graduate school for library science instead. But 20 years later, I was able to work my way back around, and I could reconnect my two interests, and so I think it was the right thing. But that reminds me that many of the people here, and Eahr is certainly a really fantastic example of this, and Joe just pointed this out, that the people who are doing the very best work here are people that are here for a reason. They're not just doing their academic work because they want to do academic work and they would do it wherever. They want to do it here for a reason. So it took me 20 years, but I got back to this place where I was supposed to be. And Eahr had the opportunity of pursuing her studies and bringing her work and her ideas and her energies to Harvard. But did enough investigation, as a good librarian will, and she discovered that this, in fact, was a better fit for the work that she was doing. Even then, was already 15 years into it. So it's a great honor to have Eahr working with me in the library. And also, like a good librarian, I was doing my research before I came to take the job here almost 2 years ago. And what I found was students from, who had graduated 15 years ago, students who had graduated 10 years ago, who were friends of mine. We run in some similar circles. In the humanistic psychology, people know a lot about CIIS, and there's a lot of bleed over. And what I found is students in generations after generations of students who had been here just as students and some who had been working in the library, the first thing they told me about the library was, "Oh, Eahr Joan still works there. This is the right job for you." So it's that the work that Eahr does with students is the work that half of her is passionate about. The other half has been invested in the intellectual work that's gone into this 2,000-page encyclopedia. And not just the words, but also the images. At least 800 photographs that are planned to be used within the production itself. And in addition to that, I think there's close to 8,000 images total as a result of the field work she had done over a 10-year period, 12-year period. I mean, the kind of dedication that goes into working on a project like that is the same dedication that Eahr brings every single day to working with the CIIS students. That passion that I will not let this fail because that's my iron will, and this is what I want to do with it. And what she does with it is really amazing work. Both the work of the encyclopedia and even more so the work with our students. The difference that she's made in the community is significant, and I'm very lucky. So Bauman also mentioned that there's a sort of coming together of events with the launching of this content, which we're all very proud of, and also the ability to host it on the Digital Commons platform, which is a fairly newly acquired digital repository solution for the whole community. And this is a really fantastic example of a way that the scholarship and the creative work that's being produced through our community now has a place to be both stored and kept safe in its digital format, and also made available to the world. So it is a very good fit for the intention that Eahr has always had for this material, which is to make it freely available to everyone who might be interested. And so it's both going to be part of the creative and scholarly work that's coming out of our community, and it will also help to expand the reach of the whole community to the widest possible audience. So we in the library, and I think in the whole community, we're very proud and excited, and this is a very good night for all of us, but especially for Eahr. So.
And Arisika, you've been here all day. Thank you. You blessed us first thing in the morning, and please bless us with this part of the program as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Bauman. Rather than a blessing, what I was supposed to be doing tonight was to claim Eahr as part of our women's spirituality community. You know, while we can't take credit for all of it, you know, all those years of work, what we really do want to say is that Eahr's work is really such a fine example of the kind of transdisciplinary scholarship that is in our program. It's the kind of rigorous research that we want, expect, and demand of our students. And I want to say, too, that while there are many definitions of women's spirituality that float out in the community, we've always seen it as very multicultural, as very transhistoric, as having roots in every continent on which humans exist. And this is something that Eahr came to us with this big vision to do big research that documented the presence of women in revered positions all over the world, going back as far as 6 million years before the Common Era, all the way up through what we think of as a more modern time. We have to say, this is a leading voice in women's spirituality. And we're particularly grateful both that she, in her wisdom and using her great skills, decided that yes, rather than Harvard, CIIS is the place where this encyclopedia should have its home. And secondly, we are so grateful to CIIS, to the library, to the support of Joseph Siviano, which we have enjoyed for several decades, that we're really grateful that we could have this work here. And our work has always, as a field, we've always emphasized this unity of spirituality, social justice, gender, excavating the buried stories, bringing to light the real history that we can find. You know, when I was going through school, we used the term prehistory quite a lot. And now, and we tried to say that sort of, well, the Dark Ages, before there was writing, sort of nothing existed. And what's so wonderful is our field has really given the lie to that, to say that there is a history. It's a visible history. It's a recorded history. It's a history that is accessible to us. But it takes the work of scholars to make that manifest. It takes the work of dedication. It takes the work of having a program that supports this kind of scholarship. So I really want to say thank you, Eahr. Thank you for modeling who we are, who we want to be, what we have discovered. And again, the cross-cultural, the Africa, Southern East Asia, Southern Europe, all these areas which are so rich for us. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Eahr, would you like to come to the podium? It's that time of the night. Are you all set up? Should I dim the lights down?
I don't know.
Okay. So
Maybe we can leave the lights where they are, and then when we do the projection here, we
I'll
can
do that. Okay. Good.
take those down. To the Dark Goddess, my mother. To the Dark Goddess, everyone's mother. To the Dark Goddess, Mother Earth. To the Dark Goddess, of the sunrise, of the sunset, to the Dark Goddess where we came from. So mote it be. This, by the way, is one of the items that over the last 22 years, when students that I have had the privilege to work with, whether BAC, master's, or dissertation students, fill shelves with their travels, their journals. And they come back. This student was in Africa for 3 months over a summertime. And the day she returned, she came to the library and said, "Thank you. I would never have known what to look for if it weren't for your scholarship." The nature of Regenesis Encyclopedia. Synthesis. I'm assuming everybody can hear. Can you hear me? Heidi? Thank you. The nature of Regenesis Encyclopedia. Synthesis of the spiritual Dark-Motherline, integral research, Labyrinth Learning, and Eco-Theology. Keywords include new vision, Archaeo-Mythology, Gaian-centered, unity of being, being with a hyphen, B-E-I-N-G, an action word, unity of being, and ochre. In many ways, the California Institute of Integral Studies has been a significant homecoming for the Regenesis encyclopedias, and tonight for sure is no exception. Also, CIIS library directors, fellow staff, WSE faculty, and community members have not only been very supportive over the decades, but have welcomed, especially since 9/11, becomes ever more pertinent to the 21st century research, including what are the origins of feminist spiritual leadership that predates monotheistic religions by centuries? What is the significance of the color ochre that seems to flourish both in CIIS library as well as outside on Mission Street? When you exit the building tonight, look above you and you will see the CIIS flag is in ochre. Look down the street on the right and the left-hand corner. Both of those buildings are in ochre. What is the synthesis of the spiritual Dark-Motherline? What does biblical Genesis have to do with social ecology and all forms of hierarchical order and domination, whether of class, race, ethnicity, gender, or sexual preference? What does Genesis have to do with that? Did Yahweh have a wife, a cohort, or a hieros gammas, co-regent? What does the Virgin Mary have to do with Egyptian Isis? How does calendar consciousness challenge 19th century anthropocentric values? What does Labyrinth Learning have to do with a metamorphic way of knowing in 21st century pedagogy? And a personal favorite, which is just up the hill from where I live in the Inner Sunset, what does the Egyptian temple, Kamumbo, have to do with health, healing, and UCSF? Hang on, there's a rationale coming up. You may be caught laughing, I may scowl, we'll do it together. As tonight is the first Regenesis celebration with the CIIS community and others who are streaming this event off campus as well. To my granddaughter in Boston, I see you too. The spirits of my many mentors whose lives and publications have deeply impacted the Re-Genesis encyclopedias. The publications of these many mentors include Dr. Merlin Stone, dear friend of mine, recipient of an honorary doctorate from CIIS, but it was never officially announced. I announce it tonight. Dr. Merlin Stone. When God was a woman, the heavens broke apart when I saw that. I had just returned from lobbying in Augusta, Maine. And one of the people that was in the car that I was in when we left, we were all freezing. There was no heat in this particular car. And she said, by the way, look what I've just discovered. I thought I would never recover. Why I never thought about that before is another question. But I thought about it that night, and I've thought about it every night since. In addition to early mentors and publications, a lifetime of events galvanized Regenesis. The mid-1970s crushing news that despite years of lobbying and fundraising efforts, the ratification of the ERA effort, equal rights for women and girls, had failed. One more time, that the efforts of Eve's daughter did not make the cut. This very disappointing news was quickly followed by the civil and human rights determination to never stop further change maker efforts. Never. But at the end of the day, whether you win or whether you lose, giving up is not an option. Or what my dear mentor, Asphodel Long from London, would say, just push on. I've done that. I was trained well by her. The following presentation will be divided into 3 segments. The first, which is Regenesis Project Origins, Regenesis Theory, and then the last will introduce Digital Commons with an example of 3 entries that are existing and include the images in place. Project Origins. By 1978, some 38 years ago, I was immersed in equal rights issues and classical origins, including philosophy at a New England university. During a cold November conversation with the chair of the philosophy department and a very dear friend, I was told, in essence, if your interest continues to include females and other represented populations, you are in the wrong department. Although I finished the semester, my interest in the classics, including philosophy, ended totally and completely that day. I've never picked up another piece of classical information since. It ended that afternoon when birthing the idea of a Regenesis population. For 40 years, I kept asking questions about where did we come from? Why don't we matter? Why is it that when I am 4, living with my grandmother, and I and my 2 cousins that are female, and 8 cousins that are male, that my grandmother, who rarely ever speaks to me, let alone smile, is thrilled when my male cousins walk into the room? What is the matter with this picture? Why am I and my other 2 female cousins less? The query continued to escalate every year since I was 4. Never stopped. The methodology for the Regenesis publication, the format would be that of a computer, always a living, freely available resource for all, versus one more static book. I would not write a book that couldn't be a living entity, be updated, keep it current. Note that in 1978, home computers were not a reality. I'd never seen a computer. I had no idea how to use it. But on that day, I drafted the design for a computer, and that draft of that design in 1978 continues exactly today as it was then. Evolving epistemological considerations were photographic fieldwork and the ever-emerging archaeological discoveries. And even that proved to be truly invincible for me because I hadn't traveled abroad. I really had no idea what that was going to entail. But I believe that if I did the field work before the narrative, I would have an opportunity to not only be addressing this from an academic perspective, but embody the areas in which that I am a guest in that country. Eat the food, smell the air, know the animals, know what a sunrise is like. In Turkey, for example, working there for 3 months, I think the distance was close to 6,000 kilometers that were covered. And how many times when I was leaving early for that particular day's field work, would I see a truck open on top with women in the back that were going to the fields, with children, infants, on their backs, also going to the fields. Such hard work. Many times I was invited into people's homes, mostly because I had a pathetic car. It continued to break down. It was spitting bubblegum all 6,000 kilometers. But because it kept breaking down, men and little boys would seem to come out of nowhere and put us back on the road. But not only that, they would take us into their homes for dinner or lunch, whatever it might be, which I was very grateful for because that would not have happened otherwise. But in the meantime, the women, the little girls that are serving our food do not eat with us. They are in another room, and their lunch or their dinner is whatever is left over. So these pieces of doing the field work before the theory, all of them enabled me in some small way to come to know the people in whose country I am a guest. (1978) was also the discovery of Labyrinth Learning, in which the topic chooses the student. And that absolutely had to be the case of doing this project. If there is any person who never should be driving a car in any kind of a public environment, it for sure is me. I'm pathetic when it comes to reading simple things like a map. If I'm supposed to go right, I go left, and vice versa. And one of my daughters can absolutely attest to that. And if you want to get lost for the whole day, just take a trip with us without a GPS. Is this correct? Yes, this is correct. So Labyrinth Learning, in which the topic chooses the student. I stayed focused on that all the time, knowing that what I was intending to do was going to require an awful lot of miracles. I could not possibly do it on my own, especially when I start this project, I am a mother of 3 children on welfare. I don't even have a checking account. I have no credit history whatsoever. None of this is really possible, but it was possible, and it did happen. In receipt of a welcomed endorsement at this time of being a single parent on welfare, the Regenesis project began in earnest on Labor Day 1980 when boarding a plane, one-way ticket to London University and what would become my beloved British Museum Library. Regenesis theory. At this pivotal point of human and natural history in the 21st century, many global events and voices speak to the possibility of a new vision. In support of a new vision, Regenesis proposes a unity of being in an earth-centered cosmology that is Gaian-centered. The purpose of this method is to systematically and sequentially demonstrate an inclusionary or engendered methodology. By examining a multitude of engendered subtext and underlying patterns in sequential, as in chronological, events and images of the past. Regenesis seeks to reclaim our rightful heritage, heratage. Regenesis seeks to reclaim our rightful heritage so that we may know more fully where we are going by understanding the past. Or, according to my dear friend, my English scholar friend, Melissa Raphael, records of the past enable us to decode and decipher future possibilities. If you don't know the past, I will leave with every cell in my body. You will continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. And yes, you are correct. It is not a history that is not alive. It is alive in its ancient antiquities. And once we begin to put all those pieces together of the mosaic, we can really begin to look at the patterns with more clarity than we may have had prior to the history books that we were reading when we were going to elementary school, high schools, and colleges. Regenesis is a counter-narrative of human nature spirituality as compared to biblical Genesis. I'll read that again. Regenesis is a counter-narrative of human nature spirituality as compared to biblical Genesis. As a deep spiritual history of humanity, currently that starts at 3 million BC, I expect with the new scientific discoveries we're going to be at 6 million BC in the next, maybe by the end of this year. I'll read this sentence again. Regenesis is a counter-narrative of human nature spirituality compared to biblical Genesis. As a deep spiritual history of humanity, I'm going to say is 6 million BCE, spiritual practices and rituals predate monotheistic religions by centuries. 12 years of photographic fieldwork included the geographical areas of North Africa, the Near and Middle East, Europe, and into the Far East via the caravanserais. According to Lisa Christie, where are you, Lisa? According to Lisa Christie, the archaeomythologist Maria Gimbutas is the only other person to have engaged in this depth of fieldwork. As in addition, oh, this is interesting. I have misplaced your citation. I'm sorry about that. I'll have to sort that out. In addition to chronologically photographing and archiving the holistic spiritual sensibilities of cultures indigenous to these regions of the Near East, the Far East, and Africa, all but for decades of dedicated research have also included the deep historical origins of war, of rape, of theft, including corporate theft and slave trade, along all forms of hierarchical disorder, predicated on class, race, ethnicity, and gender discrimination and domination. Additionally, Regenesis offers fresh evidence and insights on a variety of related topics, including human, natural, and social history. This fresh evidence is illustrated in the following. The life-giving theory of natality versus warmongering, including the hospitals that were bombed yesterday. Ecological coexistence versus the polemics of Genesis dominion as in hierarchical domination. Spirituality tethered to ochre, there's that word again, spirituality tethered to ochre, and calendar consciousness versus punitive canons. Labyrinth cosmologies versus monotheistic measures. Eco-Theology versus transcendent Father-God theology. Synthesis of equal partnership models versus patristic savior models. We can't fully partner if we're depending upon saviors to rescue us. We need to be full team players. Demythology of Greco-Roman archetypes, as we are all unique archetypes. We don't need Jungian theory to support that. We are all unique archetypes. DNA of the Dark-Motherline legacy versus Adam's God-given rib. Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that enormously. It's one thing to work really hard to bring what you believe is another possibility, but it may completely go over your whole audience, but you're really bright and you're really cool. Life-affirming principles of Gaian values in which the whole of nature is potentially divine and immanent. This Re-Genesis Encyclopedia supports a global perspective that outdistances the modern Western worldview. It includes research that seeks to give voice to this worldview from an eco-theology perspective. Theia, meaning goddess, Gaian, and all her children. Eco-theology, which was coined in 1999, is the paradigm of holistic interdependence and is rooted in life-affirming principles and values. For example, eco-theology also describes participatory reality, which can be understood through the epistemology of Labyrinth Learning, a research method in which the topic chooses the students and involves technology, intuition, and synchronicity. It is a method I use in every opportunity that I have with CIIS students. Doesn't matter if they're BAC students, they are coming to do a 6-page paper. It doesn't matter if they're a dissertation student. Labyrinth Learning, a research method in which the topic chooses the scholar and involves technology, intuition, and synchronicity. Also, according to Christie, both eco-theology and the research method and pedagogy of Labyrinth Learning are two major contributions to the field of women's spirituality. Over the course of Regenesis living, I have been blessed and challenged by many discoveries, but no homecoming was so profound as the discovery of Labyrinth Learning, in which every loss becomes another possibility, and every pushback is another regenesis. Again, I swear to you as I stand up here tonight, I could never have done this amount of work for this amount of years. I don't even know if I could have continued to have interest in it. But knowing the fact that, believing the fact that the topic had chosen me, and it didn't matter how qualified I was, what my skill sets were. The message was, the topic has chosen you, and if you don't do it, nobody else will. The topic chooses the scholar. In closing of part 2 of the Regenesis theory, for more Labyrinth Learning information, see the upcoming article. I think it's to be January 2016. 2016. Oh, that's right. That's not next year. Right, 2017, minor detour. Article, International Journal of Transpersonal Study. There will be a full article on Labyrinth Learning, research which started actually last Saturday. And thank you so much, Heidi, for the invitation. Also, for more information on Labyrinth Learning, you can see a year ago today, I spoke to Labyrinth Learning also, and that is now available on WSE's homepage, also YouTube, also Google Images. And other Labyrinth Learning information in Regenesis 2016 edition, which is the narrative now that is finished, and we are talking about publishing in the not-too-distant future. In the 2016 version of 30,000 BCE, Labyrinths, Spirals, and Meanders, that's the title of that particular entry. That particular entry took me, that was a total of a 3-week vacation week period, and I had yet to find any information that is as full-bodied as that particular entry is. It's dense, whatever that means, but it's an excellent review of both ancient and current history on labyrinths. And as I said, the entry date for that is 30,000 BCE. So it takes labyrinths back to findings from 30,000 BCE and brings it up into the current 21st century. For more information on the origins of spirituality that predate canonical religions by centuries, also see the upcoming article. I'm not sure what I'm going to publish this in, maybe Digital Commons. And again, this is looking at the origins of spirituality that predates canonical religions by century. The title of that article is Ochre's Living Lineage, the Gynomorphic Bloodline of Spirituality. For more information, don't go away. For more information on the next issue of CIIS Today, which is coming out at graduation about a month from now. And there is an extensive article that's being done on Regenesis, both the research as well as the author. Sounds a little scary to me, but I guess we can sort it out. And lastly, there was another one of many, 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 many miracles that happened 4 days ago. I was involved in a situation in which the pushback just seemed intolerable. And I remember going to bed that night, please send me a sign. I am so distraught about what is happening right now. So I go to bed, turn on the television, Netflix, and I don't even have to go anywhere. I turn it on, and I see a BBC documentary. It's called The Ascent of Women. W-O-M-A-N, Woman. It's written by Amanda Foreman, F-O-R-E-M-A-N. I think it was a 6-part documentary, and it traces Eve's daughters throughout the centuries, starting with around 7000 BCE, Anatolian site of Çatalhöyük, up through Arab Spring eruptions, and into 2015, gender equality efforts in numerous countries, included Yemen, Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Liberia. And there's another 2016 publication. I checked yesterday. It hasn't been published yet, but it's called The World Made by Women. And why it was a miracle to me is it was one of those times I was thinking, it is so hard to launch this topic. I'm giving this away. What is the problem here? And I had, for, as Lisa knows, when I originally designed this, which countries and cultures I was going to take on at a time, limited money, limited. So in a London coffee shop, I thought the way that I'm going to determine what can I do, how many miles do I have to walk carrying like 60 pounds of photographic gear, how many miles, how many days, how many years. And so I turned this cup over. I put the British Museum Library, in the center of the cup, and then I drew a circle around that. And I decided I'll just focus on that area. I think I can handle that. How I thought I was going to handle it, I have no idea. But nevertheless, I committed myself that day to taking on that territory. And it included the Near East, South Africa, and much of Europe. And the big wish was, please, can there be somebody else that comes along with me or beside me that can take on the rest of the universe? I don't think I'm going to live that long. And even then, I was a lot younger than I am today. But still, I had this idea, I'm not going to live forever. And what I discovered this night of so much pushback in a particular area it was really painful. And I see what Amanda Foreman has done. She has done that work I did not finish. She has done it, and she starts almost where I stop. She starts at 7000 BCE in Çatalhöyük. I stop at year 1. But she not only stops in a very similar time period, so she's covering much of ancient history that I wasn't able to do. Different cultures throughout the world. It is phenomenal. I highly recommend this to you. I haven't met her yet. I welcome that. But I see us as sisters. We have done the same work. And one did the first half and the other is doing the second half. This to me was a miracle. On a night I was feeling so despondent about how am I ever going to launch this program. And as I said, this was just like 6 days ago. So that's my miracle. And I've given you different follow-up. You can contact us always in WSE on their webpage. You can contact us in CIIS library. Maybe we can do something like put up some of this follow-up information on the library homepage. We haven't really talked about this. We'll have to put this in place. So in closing, I give tribute. Well, we have the 3 entries we're going to do, so don't go away yet. But in closing this part 2, I give tribute to the legions of little girls and women who went to their graves underpaid, overworked, underacknowledged, underknown, because they carried the indelible sin of being one of Eve's daughter. They weren't entitled to equal wages. They weren't entitled to a seat at every table. Somehow they were less, and I think it has to do with this indelible sin that has really no reality at all. So whether you are 4 or 40 or 80, be a full team player. Make it happen. So I'm going to switch. I hope you don't need to leave. I would like to do the third part of tonight's presentation. Oh, and ochre. What color is ochre? This is the color of ochre. It's in the hallways. It's in the library. It's above the front door. It's down Mission. 2 buildings, right and left. Ochre. You want more information, contact me. I'll give it to you later. Okay. We are demonstrating there are 250 entries in Re-Genesis Encyclopedia that covers, coming up to now, 2,000. Come in, come in, come in. I've been missing you. Please come in. That is around 2,000 pages. Once we get the images down, it may go up someplace between 2,000 to 2,500. I don't know. But of the 250 entries in Regenesis, tonight we are going to illustrate 3, briefly, of those images, starting with Isis and Philae. Isis and Philae, Egypt. The year is 3070. Ancient Philae is the temple site of the great black goddess Isis, or Is, in Nubia, Egypt. She not only presides over Philae, but also the Alexandria Medical School, which she is well known for. Her influence continues for over 3 millennia in Egypt. Also well into the Hellenistic period, when conflated with dark Greek Demeter or Demeter, then continues into the Roman era, and was finally adopted by Christian needs, including the Dark Virgin Mother. So this, like all titles, again, it is not a journal article, it is not a book, it is not a chapter. It is an encyclopedia. Its goal is to give you further considerations, further keywords, to take different possibilities and make it into your scholarship, your paper in the BAC department, your dissertation. So it's not definitive, it is opening up other possibilities that you might not have considered. Perfect. Okay, good. Philae is when the Aswan Dam project was constructed 1971 to 1981. They took Philae and they raised it onto a higher island. Otherwise, it would all be underwater today and not be available to you. And so the format of this encyclopedia, as I said, 250 images, entries. It also, unlike a book or a chapter, it does not have an abstract. It follows the Hastings model for encyclopedias, and it attempts to bring you forward into the entry that you are entering by succinct quotations. The first one at Philae in Nubia, you will see DM-15. The acronym for Dark Mother. Text was written by one of our very esteemed and renowned faculty member in WSE, Lucia Birnbaum. So DM, there are 150 pages of references in that are tied to this encyclopedia. Everything is, I have gone over all of these citations 3 times now in the last year and a half that my colleague here, Antonia, can well attest to. She's one person who has read all 2,000 pages and exquisitely helped me with the editing process. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So again, I am giving you the general layout of this first entry. And so what is, got it. Scroll down 2 fingers. Got it. Okay. So you've got the introductory citations relative to this particular entry. Then you enter in to the narrative. You will see these references throughout, and continues with the theory, and then thousands upon thousands for additional ISIS. I hope we're looking at the same thing. I guess so. I probably wouldn't be looking at it if you're not looking at it. Okay, we got it. I'm cool. So you have for additional ISIS information, and then it will give you all of the different entries in which there is further information on this. For additional bird goddess, which Isis was well known, widespread protective wings, for example. And then for additional information on ancient dark mothers and related trade routes. So you have all of these entries. And these entries, I do not mind telling you, were an amazing amount of work. I could spend easily 3/4. This was all done either on a Wednesday, Saturday, or Sunday of every year that I have been at CIIS, doing my day job in my library, and then my moonlighting on a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And to do something like for additional information on ancient dark mothers and related trade routes could easily take up a whole Wednesday. And at the end of the day, it's, I still don't have any groceries. I still haven't changed the bed. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Very, very time-consuming work. But it felt, this was the way, again, as I said, in 1987, when I originally designed this as a computer document, that it had to be able to have, I don't know that I called it links, because I didn't know what that was called, but it had to have cross-reference possibilities. So that translated, it was done for the purpose of links, but I didn't have that language, so it was cross-disciplinary. That's what this was about. But a lot of time went into putting this piece of these encyclopedias together. And then you have, in every one of these entries, you also have not only cross-reference links that are available, but all of the theses, the dissertations, the journal articles that I have read over all of these years to support the theories in Regenesis. For further Goddess Virgin Mary research. And then we are traveling down via Felucca in Egypt on our way down to Isis Philae. And we're traveling down on Felucca. We're coming down on the left-hand side. You see these 3 structures. They're called the pylons. That is part of the architectural structure. Temple Blue. This was another thing. I mean, when you go there, you're going to have cell phones. You're going to have so many ways to find this information out. And if you're a photographer, your equipment might not weigh any more than a cell phone. So translate that to the women in Turkey, and when they go to work, they're also carrying their children to, when this project was happening, that you are pretty much carrying like 40 to 60 pounds every day. And you don't have, if you don't have your routes correct, or maybe the signs they've changed, and how you get from Jerash to Petra, that road doesn't exist anymore. So you have, and this is an example also with the maps. When you go, you will have very different information to support you on that trip. So you can refer to this one if you want, but I think it's not going to be really very applicable some 30, 40 years later. A night view of the entrance to the Isis temple, and this is the first pylon. And again, I went there twice for day shots and then at night to get night shots for you. This is the entrance, and there are two images near the doorway on the right and the left-hand side. And if I use this, does that show up as, love technology. So here you have Isis, both on the right and the left-hand side, and then her headgear is that of horns. Inside is the full moon. And two beautiful animals, lions below. They always protect the library, not the least of which is the public library in New York City and those gorgeous lions. And the lions are protecting her space as well. The next is Imhotep, which was a medical practitioner that worked very closely with Isis, and this is his temple site right at the first pylon, just to the right as you go into the entryway. Other images is the inner sanctuary. Again, this was taken at night. We're looking through the three pylons back to the Holy of Holies. Other images includes Isis, this is sacred Bethel. This also taken at night, compromised, but in that same room. So look at this Bethel. It's usually a square, oblong stone, very often does not have a head. And so we have the Holy of Holies. It has this Bethel, and then just to the left of that, so this was a little compromised because of the lack of lighting. And then we have this one, which is offerings to Isis, shot it, and it's like you could be standing there with very strong lights making this happen, but it's exactly the same room. And one is hard to photograph, and I thought this one would be, but not. Another miracle. Egyptian Bethel, this one is in front of the Cairo Museum in Cairo. This one, as I said, has a head, usually not there. Another Bethel, this one is in Boğazköy, or Boğazkale, in what was then Anatolia, later is Turkey. It's about a 4-hour drive from Ankara. And more often than not, in this 12 years of field work, I would lose, well, I didn't really lose, but it was the first 3 days could be quite, about 3 days out of every week, I had some kind of digestive stuff that was going on, some water, some food I shouldn't have, but nevertheless, it was such a common occurrence, it just didn't matter anymore. But this day, I was particularly unwell, and as I walked into Boğazköy, and I see this, also a Bethel, in front of me, and the height came just about to where my hips are, and I walked up to it and bent my body over this Bethel. It was like I was just immediately drawn to go there. You'll feel better. And about 4 minutes later, I came up from being not wildly unwell, but I wasn't doing very well. Let's put it that way. I don't mean to exaggerate here. And about 5 minutes later, I'm as well as rain, and this is a Bethel, and it's taken in the heat on this wonderful day, and it calls. I go there, I bend over, I stand up. What was that all about? Another full moon at Philae, which is the sanctuary is dedicated to Hathor. And for the trip to Egypt, specifically left on Friday the 13th was a full moon. And Friday the 13th, of course, that's lucky. And then the other thing was the first couple of weeks, you can get really great photographs if you've got the full moon around all the time. And this is an example of this, which I hope you can discern, that is on, I don't know if it's the right or the left. Can you see, make out the moon? Thank you. Another example of, how did I do this? I don't know. I've got, stay here? Oh, where I was, thank you, you're so bright. I really like this audience. Not that I've had many others. I mean, this is the first one. What can I compare it to? Get a grip, really. So here is another temple of Dendara. This one is down the Nile, closer to where Cairo is. And this is Hathor's temple. Both Philae and Hathor's temple, Dendara, are both major healing centers in Egypt. Bird goddess I mentioned before, Isis, winged protector. Other examples include one of her credos is the Ankh, which probably most of you are familiar with. Very often the baseline here is a fuller triangle. The triangle is the major iconography that we have in almost every one of the ancient caves when they are discovered, has a triangle. The pubic area, the female life-giving pubic area, is classic for these deities. And I'll show you another example of this one. This is from Cyprus. This is on a coin, and you'll notice that the center of this particular beetle, which is in the center of this coin, is also this classic triangle. The Ka is, this was at Karnak Temple, and you can see right here, the iconography is this. Yes, this is the Ka, drawing down, thought by the Egyptians, and maybe other cultures as well, as drawing down the heavenly energy. The Ba, the soul, the spirit, is the individual spirit. And at the time of death, the theory is that the Ka joins the Ba, Ka-Ba. Now, there's a research topic for you. Another example of the Ka is this sarcophagus. This is in the Cairo Museum. This is Isis also, and the Ka can be more like this. It can be like this. This fills that same category of upstretched arms, sometime around like this, sometimes with a right angle. Kaaba. Other seated examples of Isis nursing includes this Black Madonna, again, same headgear as you saw earlier. Isis nursing Horus. It's so amazing. We're both looking at the same images. I'm really fascinated by this process. I'm not kidding you. Another example of Isis we saw earlier, a pendant on a necklace, and those wings stretched cornices on the top or center of entryways. It's right here. Other examples of the uraeus or Uranus include this one, which is run by pharaohs at the top as a protector again, and the wings are now in front of the pharaoh. And another example includes, come on, baby. Okay. This one, the uraeus, is photographed in Anatolia, and it is on top of Kaaba. Her headgear, it's right above it here, and holding a mirror. So as uraeus, the possibility of looking at how many different countries and cultures have some kind of protecting item that hovers above or around doors. For example, in Tunisia, very frequently, and other countries as well, I'm just using it as an example, you will frequently see the hand of Fatima above doorways. The crucifix is very common both in and outside of Catholic homes. The crucifix, by the way, is very late in the game. The crucifix comes from the cruciform, 3000 BCE. And then later it is adapted by Christians as the cruciform suddenly becomes the crucifix. Another uraeus for Jewish homes, mezuzah, is another form of protecting your dwelling. You're always so helpful. Okay. It's these little things in life, that can trip you up. And lastly is a Black Madonna, because this particular entry is suggesting the possibility that there might be a correlation because with the pagan deities, for example, Isis, later being absorbed by the Christian religion as Black Madonnas. And in other entries, I have many, many examples of these Black Madonnas that are now suddenly aligned with the Catholic Church. I think maybe what I need to ask you something, because you've been so, you've been here for a while, and if you like, we can not go any further, which can give you time for question and answers, to have something to eat. What would you like me to do? I can go on with this, or we can... Go on. All right. All right. So now I just click out of this and then it'll go away. Okay. All right. Okay. So caravanserais. So what I'm suggesting is the caravanserais are really responsible for transporting the black deity throughout from North Africa, South Africa, all the way to the Far East. And the Phoenicians are they were great traders, the Phoenicians were. And in their trading and moving caravans from different trading sites, for example, you might be, you are a merchant of incense, and you are starting at Mecca. And your trade route is from Mecca coming up as far as Petra. And so it's not like one trademaster is going the whole distance. Different tradespeople were handling different segments, again, suggesting from South Africa to the Far East. And they were transporting so much information about the black deity. And most of these caravanserais are major resources of dark spirituality. And we'll go to the images straight away. Good night, my friend. I'll see you in the hall tomorrow or Monday. Okay, bye. So images of remaining caravanserais. And I said also to you earlier that maps that I am using are quite ancient. You will have better ones when you go. This is looking at the area of Anatolia, black deities, and that are being shared in different areas. This caravanserai, another miracle, happened to arrive there right at noontime, and the government was doing, the government was doing putting together an advertising campaign for tourists, and it was including photographing some of these caravanserais, but happened to arrive there absolutely at noontime, and those that were doing the filming went elsewhere to have lunch. And those that were being filmed are there, and it was just fine. We could take as many photographs as we chose. We did, then left. There's one. The next caravanserai image is still pending. It's being enhanced. Another caravanserai is in Selçuk. These are mostly in Turkey. Another caravanserai that shows strong evidence Thank you. There's a vaulted room with a shrine area, which is right here in the center of this caravanserai. Another example is this one in Alanya, Anatolia. And much of these are thousands of years old, so rarely do you have the whole monument that is still there. But there's always just enough pieces that after you are there several hours, you discover like, this is perfect. Let's go with this one. Another caravanserai is that of Kizkalisi. This one, which is a Cappadocia. Ephesus. How many have been to Ephesus? No wonder you're so clever. This is at Pamukkale. This is your favorite place. This is where you're going to go. Another trade caravanserai. This one is in Petra, Jordan. This is a Jerash, about 4 hours drive from Petra. And finishing the Black Madonna in the theory that the Black Madonna was being transported primarily by the Phoenicians from one end of the world to the other. Now, if I can just get back on the last, red. Hey, Luigi. This is good enough. I think we can do this. Thank you. Okay, last entry. This one is, it's not that the rest are not exciting, but I particularly love this one. What this one is doing, again, it is following the trail of archaeology. And part of this encyclopedia, if there's a suggestion, we all came from the Dark Mother, we have to have some evidence of that. And this looks specifically at the first Dark Mothers. And I don't know that this work has been done before, actually. It's kind of like the work on the Labyrinth. I don't think it's out there. It might be, but not to my knowledge. So the first incident that we have of a humanly enhanced deity, Dark Mother 1010, is from Morocco. It is 500,000 BCE to 300,000 BCE. Now, that also, there could be an update on that time period, but I haven't gone back to research that further in the last several years. So we'll get down to the images. Here is the first one, which is Dark Mother Tantan from Morocco. The next one is the Barak Ram, Golan Heights, you probably all know. Then we have aerial view, Golan Heights. Dark Mother with hood, Willendorf. This is quite, yes, this is La Salle. And then you've got in her hand the image of the horn, looking at chronological aspects. You can see it has been enhanced. And then we're looking at an animal frieze close to this same period. And Dole Vista Nietzsche, Dark Mother, Goddess of La Spugue, French, beautiful. I feel like I'm hailing a cab. Last two images. These I don't think you are going to find in any museum. I don't think you're going to find them in Google Images. These were the kind an Anatolian merchant stopped to have some coffee one day, got to talking about what I was doing, and he said, well, I have something you might want to see. And what he showed me, which he said he would never put in a museum, but as I said, I don't know if that's true or not. So it's Kibel, Anatolian also, and she has ochre stripes in a net pattern, this beautiful plait on the back of her head. This is the front of this as well. Again, done in ochre, and this is just another example of that. And I think we've done it. So, do we have time? Caitlin, where are you? So, where are we? I need some help in terms of Q&A. How would you like to do this? How would you like to proceed?
Are you asking me?
Somebody.
Well, if people have questions, if you could please feel free to answer them. I've been monitoring the live stream. We have no questions from our digital audience.
Okay. Could we maybe have lights? We've had camera, let's have lights.
Can we ask anyone who would like to ask a question or have a comment to come forward? Unfortunately, the other mic isn't working.
So this is not so much a question right away, but just I really want to acknowledge the dedication, the perseverance, the commitment to this scholarship that this work represents. I don't have any words, Eahr, there. What you have done is so incredibly strong, empowering. I'm so glad that this research question called you. And I'm so glad you said yes.
Thank you, Arisika.
Eahr, I just want to echo what's been said about this monumental work. It's really extraordinary that you've brought this to us. And I would wondering if you would speak to what is your greatest dream for the future of this work and for scholarship in this area?
That my greatest dream, one of those was realized last week when I found Foreman's work. She did the work. I didn't have the time or the physical capabilities anymore to do. And so I felt whomever had asked me to do this task, it's all right now. I can actually begin to think about reading a book that doesn't have notes, and it's okay. Or I can go to a movie, and it's okay. I don't have to make sure I'm taking notes during the movie and get it into Regenesis. I can have a normal life with some of my friends that I'm not always such a good friend because I'm not always available. So that piece to me is monumental, that I feel like we've covered all of our bases. And the bases are really exceptionally big. But for somebody else to have the same query that I had, but I think with more resources, because she's definitely covered much more territory. She's pretty much covered like the whole planet. Mine is small compared to what she has done. And then the last piece is that it always will be a living document. That everything that is happening now, for example, the destruction that is going on in this universe, and monuments and museums that don't have the images available that I once photographed, that we have been, and as you so rightly said, they are at least archived in these photographs. So mostly everything has to do with a job to being done in one's lifetime, and that's my lifetime dream, to have that available. Is there life after Genesis? Is there life after Adam's rib? Is this all there is? How can we, as females, take our rightful and full place at every table, every conference, every dinner table, every CEO table, full players? Because so far, we have burdened one half of our universe with running the show. And maybe if we all did it together, it'll turn out better. Why not?
Hi there. My fascination is really with the field work, and I've heard some of this, but already, because we've been working together for quite a few years. But what I'm wondering, that wasn't in this presentation, that maybe other people might want to hear, is about the field work and how was it funded?
It was funded by painting houses, typing dissertations.
Right, so a lot of times when this sort of work, field work is done, and is done when it's sanctioned and supported by an institution, it's funded by them. So I'm interested in hearing a little bit about how it was funded, and also about your experience of being a woman doing this field work in the areas that you were doing it. And so if you could speak a little bit to both of those things. Thanks.
As I said, and certainly my children can attest to this, I was a welfare mother of 3 children. And when my last daughter graduated from high school, and I dropped her off at the college she was going to, and then I began my work. I felt like I had launched my children and my former husband to the best of my ability. And I think my efforts were probably better spent on my 3 children, but one could contest that. I'm not sure, nor do I know if it matters. So it was like a wing and a prayer. and it really did take an enormous amount of miracles to take, oh, there you are. I was wondering where you, yes. Hi. You said you were coming. I know. Hi. So the funding, it should never have happened. It just shouldn't. There was no reason. There was no rhyme. And as I said, I'm even the last person in the universe to be taking it on. You would do this so much more efficiently and effectively because you just would. But that's not kind of the way my mind works. And so I agreed to do something. I signed up. And I did it. And the money came from anywhere that I could put it together. I do have a reputation of, I don't sleep very much and I don't eat very much. So the fact that I don't sleep very much means that I can put in a 70-hour week, of which I am still doing. And I have been doing that for, my God, since you were born, I think. Yes, it just didn't stop. So I had a plan. I'm very creative. I seem to be able to get through any kind of maze, and somehow it did happen. I would like to be more efficient and effective in this answer, but I really don't know how it all happened, but I'm glad I don't have to do it all again.
In case there are any other questions, this mic works, and so I can come to you. You don't have to come here. Any questions? Yes.
And maybe I can just stand up and say it without the mic, but would you...
No, please, Angela.
Okay. Okay, fine. Eahr, would you please talk about getting, what you had to go through to get images in museums?
Yeah. Yeah, that was challenging. What I would do is, and the British Museum Library and colleagues in London were very, very helpful to me, trying to understand what I was going to have, and they too would say, this is impossible, this is just not going to work. I said, okay, it's impossible, but now I'm going to go, what should I prepare for? And there were things like, always make sure that you go with your visa in hand. Always make sure you have contacted the site director or the museum director, and you've confirmed the dates you're going to be there. You show up, they will probably stall and tell you, oh, he's or she is not there today, and you need to come back tomorrow. You come back tomorrow, and then you'll get there, and, oh, I'm sorry that person is not here today. That's okay. I will stay as long as it takes. And then they get tired of you, and it's easier to say go rather than have you sitting there all day long. So the whole piece of doing the photographs was fraught. And the other thing that I came to realize was I need a lot of cigarettes before I fly out of London. And they went a long, long way. So it was spit and bubblegum process. That the best laid plans didn't mean you were necessarily going to get in. And then I remember one day in Cyprus it was, and I'd been working there for about a week, and there's it's a beetle. There are not many of the really ancient beetles that are still left, or if they are, they don't seem to be visible. And in Cyprus, they were filming that day, and in Cyprus, when I get there, there is this beetle, which is of triangular form, and I have wonderful pictures of that, which you can see later, that's available. And when I get there, it's at noontime. Guess what? They are doing photographic work. They've all gone to lunch, so the lights are there. Everything is just pristine. It's like, yeah, Eahr, come right on down. We don't have a lot of time. Just do this. Don't talk to anybody. And so it's all set up and do it. But basically, if you're going to do this kind of photographic work, figure what can go wrong, will go wrong, and you're going to need a lot of time and a lot of patience. Do not lose your temper. Do not lose your temper. Be very kind, be very gracious, and have your cigarettes in hand. Are we good? Do you have a question?
I just really appreciate this work. I'm blown away by it. I don't have a question, but if you give me a minute, maybe a question might come up.
If you don't have a question, I will be on your case come Monday. Do you have a question?
I might.
You might. I think you will.
Don't worry, the method will find you.
I have two questions. The first is, what was it like, if you can describe it, the very first moment when you write down or type down the first word for this project?
That's a fabulous question. Oh, I know how that happened. Because, again, this is before computers, so all the work that I am doing is on typewriters, including when working in the British Museum Library. I had my own office space and place for my typewriter. But when I'm in field, I don't have that. And as anybody can attest to, there's one thing you don't want to do is to try to read my writing, even on a good day. And so what I did was I took extensive journal type of notes of every place that I was going. And then when I began to come back to translate those and I'm now, like when I come to CIIS, I'm working with computers, I'm not doing it in longhand, and I began to take all the information I can find from, let's say, from Jordan, and to compile that. And most of it was just, how did this ever happen? You know, you must be joking, but I'm not joking because I have the journals to prove it. And it was wonderful, very, very exciting. But I think like a lot of people that are involved in writing symphonies and producing movies and costume designers, and really get into a state in which you could work for 20 hours if your back didn't hurt so much. You're rarely interested really in food. Am I missing something here? That you're totally immersed in this universe that is always a homecoming. It is the one place on the planet you are really safe. You're really held. You are in your own universe.
And the second question, now at this very moment, if you can speak to the you who is just beginning to create that universe, what are you going to say?
Thank you for bringing me home. I had 40 years under a patristic rule, 20 in 2 different venues, and it was really discouraging. And once I discovered Regenesis, I'm always safe. I'm always home. I'm always home.
Thank you.
So, if it's okay with you, let's get to meet people you don't know, have some noshes. Thank you so much for being here. I'd like to say it means the world to me, but that sounds so trite. And to have family members, both that are streaming tonight, and my daughter and son-in-law, Terry, that are here to share this with me. It's a wonderful homecoming. Thank you. Thank you very much.